Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, and good evening. I hope that you were not expecting a formal lecture. I was told this was to be a conversation, but a few minutes ago I sort of half understood that some people were expecting a formal lecture. But it doesn't matter. We'll have a conversation. And I thought, well, I'd make just some introductory remarks about the book and begin by answering the question which I posed myself: why this book, of Africa? How did it come about? I wasn't going to say, why did I write this book? No, because I didn't really write it. It was just putting down a continuing conversation, a continuing discourse in which I've been engaged, I think, most of my life. But if you want examples, if you want some immediate instances of the kind of encounters that that led inevitably to putting down notes on the subject matters of the book, which tries to cover quite a bit of range. Let's just take the religious side. In the green room there just now, I saw on the wall a poster title, which was announcing, I think, a lecture by Dawkins. You know, Dawkins is, and the title is "The Greatest Show on Earth." And above I saw by the author of The God Illusion, The God Illusion. Now, it's very strange to think that in certain parts of the world today, for daring to put up such a poster, much less admitting to being the author of such a book, The God Delusion, you might be stoned to death or simply, put to death in any other way for blasphemy. Second incident, which again was today. I was speaking to a young lady, and she was telling me about her experience. She'd obviously read of Africa and was also lamenting the prejudice, the extremist, very intolerant prejudices that have taken place, sprung up among the various religions of the world. And she used a very interesting expression. She said, I grew up in an environment which was Christian, in which people follow their Christian religion, others follow their Muslim religions, and others their African superstitions. And for me, this went to the heart of why the book became inevitable, or why, for me, I had engaged in this discourse all my life. It's very strange. I find it very grotesque that today, at pretty close to 80, I should actually exist in an environment in which, for believing what I believe or not believing what I do not believe, I'll be considered worthy of what I call terminal censorship. Now, go back to my history, and I don't mean just me personally. I'm talking about the society in which I live, in which I was raised, the history of my people. When as I narrate of Africa, when the European explorers, of course, always either led or quickly followed by their religious stormtroopers, the Christian missionaries came to Africa on their mission of conversion, they had a very serious problem. And that was they couldn't find Satan. They couldn't find the devil. Now, if you want to convert people, you've got to, first of all, persuade them that their soul is in dire danger. They're headed for the ultimate bonfire on the other side of existence. And for that, you need to label them followers of the devil, Satan, diabolical human beings. So they looked for the devil and looked among the deities of the Yoruba pantheon. I'm a Yoruba, by the way, a very complex religion, very elaborate, very well structured. And they looked among the deities and they found Ishu, a deity called Ishu. Now, who is Ishu? I often refer to Ishu as the eminent dialectician of the human condition. Why do I call him that? Ishu is an unpredictable spirit. Ishu exists to teach humanity that there's always more than one side to any issue, more than one face to any reality. It teaches you beware of appearances. The best laid plans, in all those expressions, best laid plans of mice and men, etc. Issue is the embodiment of the lesson embedded in such sayings. And when it teaches humanity about their folly in trusting to appearances or being dogmatic about any issue, it tends to do it in a rather painful way. Like a good teacher, armed with a cane, symbolic cane for adults who haven't learned the wisdom of looking at both sides of a question. And his place is at the crossroads, where, of course, which is the place where human beings get confused. Which road do you take at the crossroads? Ishu is so mischievous that in the Yoruba pantheon, he's not allowed in the house. His place is always at the doorstep, because Ishu in the house is just too temperamental. And before you do anything in Yoruba religion, before you worship even any of the deities, you make sure you set aside a morsel for Ishu. Ishu is really the messenger of the deities. He can deliver the message straight. He's always truthful, but he may deliver it in a way, without lying, that makes you misinterpret the message. But that's because he has a lesson to impart. So when the missionaries came, they looked at this, among the other deities, the god of lightning, the god of the rivers, the god of purity, the god of war, the god of Urishauko, the god of the moist elements, etc., etc. They said, Ishu. That's the answer. This mischievous person who upsets human plans, that's the devil. And so Ishu became, for Christians, the devil, Satan. And even in the Yoruba interpretation, translation of the Bible, each time you hear of the devil, Satan, it is Ishu. But Ishu is anything but evil. That is the truth. On the contrary, you'll find a symbol of Ishu in the divination bowl, because it is he also who helps the Babalawo to interpret the Odu of Ifa, Odu. The Ifa is the scriptures, the compendium of Yoruba wisdom, even pharmacology. All the wisdom of the Yoruba is bound up in the verses of Ifa, and the compendium called Ifa, whose verses the Babalawo, the diviner, recites as he divines for human beings. So Ishu is anything but the devil. But today, it's very painful to find one's own countrymen and women referring to Ishu as the devil. By contrast, look at what happened to Ishu when he moved with the slaves to Latin America. Having arrived with the knowledge that Ishu was feared by the Christian missionaries, the slaves adopted Ishu as their patron deity, just to scare the Christians who wanted them to convert. Ishu became the paramount symbol of resistance in Latin America, in the Americas. In fact, it went beyond that. In certain parts of Brazil, for instance, you'll find that Ishu has even been elevated to the supreme deity, simply because that was the symbol, that was their protagonist for freedom. And so you find the transposition of deities across the Atlantic, how not a minor, but certainly a junior deity became not only the symbol of resistance in the New World, but the supreme deity in certain parts of Brazil, like Brasilia, for instance. On the contrary, if you go to Bahia, which is the heartland of the Yoruba in Brazil, and you go to a Yoruba shrine or candomblé, no, the hierarchy is quite plain. But in certain other parts, you see, Ishu became the supreme deity. Now consider today. Now this was the history of the missionaries in